experienced in the last couple of years. So let me just do this right. So I'm going to talk about the best $1 million that I ever lost. It is actually the only $1 million I ever lost. I wish I had more to lose, but it's some of the mistakes that I've learned in my own business, as well as some of the guys that I've spent time coaching in the last few years. So the first lesson comes out of a business called Missing Link. And the fact that I'm presenting to you is possibly one of the reasons why I want to bring it up. It's a very simple 4-step methodology by which you should be able to present anything to anyone. That is from a presentation like this right through to a sales deck. But what's really important around this is more the fact that being able to speak publicly separates great business owners from good or mediocre business owners. So you often talk about the fact that if there are 2 doctors in the same city doing the same kind of practice, the one that is able to do presentation effectively generally runs a better business. And the 4-step methodology that comes out of the Missing Link business is something that they've used to train all the TED talkers globally. And it's a very simple way to deliver the story in a smart way. The steps are very simple. You give the audience a reason to care, i.e. a reason to care about what you're actually talking about to get them engaged, to give them a reason to believe in the problem or believe in yourself, tell them what they need to know, and then tell them what they need to do. And if you can present in those 4 sort of categories in that sequence, you are able to take people through a very simple delivery of how to communicate the story you want to tell. So give them a reason to care, a reason to believe, tell them what they need to know, and tell them what they need to do. The next step is around how I lost my $1 million and why I still believe it's the best money I ever spent. So I'm going to go back and tell you my personal story, starting way back in 1994. I was living in London, doing all kinds of odd jobs, mostly drinking too much with my friends at the time. And I got a phone call in the little place that I was living from my father. And this was on a what we call the ticky box, right? So 94, pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-email, pre-Facebook. And my father got on the call and he said to me, you know, he started this business with a sales rep of himself that he used to employ. The guy has run off and started this little business on the side. The business is ticking over. He's got a couple of staff. The partner is putting all the profits up his nose in cocaine. He can't run the business. He's got a couple of options. One of the options is to shut it down, or alternatively, I can get on a plane, come back and take over this little business. So I was quite broke at the time, and I told my friends, hey guys, I'll see you in 3 months. There's a little pet project that I'm going to go do, make a bit of cash, and I'll be back. My father said to me, this is a sort of a 3-month gig. Anyway, got on a plane, never saw those people again, and arrived back in Johannesburg on a Saturday morning, and on the Monday morning walked into the building where this little business was being housed. It had a small office the size of a double garage and a little packing facility with a couple of staff packing food. And my father walked me through the office and said, right, here's your receptionist, and here's your bookkeeper, and here's your sales rep, and here's the driver of the bakkie. And he put me into my corner office, which was a bit of a joke. And he gave me the thumbs up. He literally gave me a thumbs up and said, good luck. I hope you have a head for business. And I had a small panic attack. I didn't know what to do. So I actually landed up calling my mother and saying, like, hi mom, I'm stressed out. You know, what should I do? And I suddenly realized that I had no idea about anything when it came to running a business. All I knew is that I would like to make money, and I had all the energy in the world being in my early 20s. Long story short, that 3-month pet project turned into 17 years of my life. And during the course of those 17 years, the last sort of 2 years cost me about 12 million Rand, which is about $1 million at the time, of me funding that business, trying to keep it alive. And I'll come to that now. The point being was that it was a business that I wasn't meant to have been in. It was a business I didn't love. It was a really good business from a financial perspective, but I had to buy myself freedom. And that was the best 12 million I ever spent. So again, freedom is your option of choice. And I always felt that I was very much trapped in that business for a very long time. So to give you an idea of some of the numbers of the business, these numbers are from 2008. So the business in 2008 was doing about 80 million Rands in revenue. We'd sold about 2 million units of food out the door every single month. That was about 60,000 liters of juice a day, 35 metric tons of fruit out the door every day. We had about 11,000 square meters of covered facility in the outskirts of Germiston. I had about 350 staff, a sales team of about 40 people. We had 30 plus vehicles. We had 19 properties around the country procuring and processing fruit. I had 2 German cars. I had 1 paid off house very quickly in Parkhurst. And when I lost the 12 million rand, there was 0 fucks given. I really didn't care at that point in time. I'd completely given up with the business. So let's discuss what actually happened in that business. So for the first 15 years of that business, I always talk about the business being indestructible or sort of bulletproof, and how nothing could actually harm that business. It produced cash hand over fist, month on month, year on year. We reinvested and it grew and grew and grew. But the one thing that I didn't really do or didn't spend enough time on was kind of doing a bit of a risk analysis on the business. And in 2008, there was the global economic crisis, and that brought a lot of pressure to my business, but it wasn't it wasn't the only problem. It was a contributing factor towards why the business started failing. There was actually the perfect storm of issues and things that happened over about an 18-month period that created the perfect storm. Things like we used to import a lot of edible oil, so vegetable and soya oil from around the world. During that period of time, there were massive wildfires in Russia. So Russia had an export embargo and the edible oil price went up dramatically. At the same period, we had a massive drought in this country for about 2 years. So procuring fruit became a big problem and the pricing also went through the roof. At that point, I was paying out a partner quite a large amount of money every single month, which put a little bit of pressure on cash flow. We also had a 5-month strike just prior to that, where we had 2 staff members killed for coming to work by guys that were actually on strike. Very messy, very taxing, emotionally as well as financially. And then, cut a long story short, is that we had been through a 7-month due diligence with Tiger Brands, who wanted to buy one of the pieces of my business, and that fell through. But what the lesson was that we had the wrong kind of clients. So I went and started chasing all the large corporates, the Pick n Pay, Shoprite, Spars, Massmarts of the world, and we got into bed with them, producing house brands, and we had long-term contracts with them. So we had long-term contracts with very large retailers who had penalty clauses for us not to supply. We needed to move our pricing up dramatically, sort of over 20% over a very short period of time. And the retailers went, no, we'll give you the 6% increase. And from a business that, as I said to you before, made a lot of money every month, we landed up losing about 250,000 rand a month for a period of about 2.5 or so years. Over and above that, cash flow became tight, and I ended up putting in a lot of my own personal money to keep that business afloat. But that actually wasn't the reason sort of why it failed. The major reason why it failed was something else, is that I ended up in a business where the business did not honor any of my personal values. And my values are obviously things that help drive my motivation. So my values are creativity, mentorship, solving problems, catalyzing other people for their success, getting my ego stroked, and recognition. And the recognition button was very, very dramatically pushed when my father gave me the big thumbs up all those years earlier. What I was looking for ultimately was my father to give me recognition and give me the pat on the back going, well done, son, you've grown a bigger business, which I never got. And as a good Jewish boy, I went through some therapy, and my therapist said to me, you realize that the recognition button is something you'll never ever get from your father. And as soon as I realized that the reason I was working so hard wasn't for the money, but actually was for the recognition, and I realized I was never going to get the recognition, I just stopped caring. I stopped giving a shit about the business. And that was around the same time that we had all the other 5, 6 contributing factors in my business. So we had a business that was collapsing with a leader that just didn't care. And the lesson here is very simple, is that you really, really do need to honor your values in your business. If you aren't actually getting satisfaction by scratching that itch in your business, you put your business and yourself at high risk. The next lesson is this myth of work-life balance. So I believe that work-life balance is grossly misunderstood by most people. People think about work-life balance on a daily, sort of weekly basis. How do they enjoy a couple of hours in their day every single day? And we think about balance, you think about sort of a kid's seesaw, left and right, and put the pressure on the one side and raises the other. The reality for me is that the work-life balance seesaw is actually over the entire period of your working career. So let's call that 40 or even 50 years of your work. And I believe that if you're putting a lot of pressure down on the first half of your working career, you'll find a lot of balance in the second half of your working career. So in my early 20s, I was making more money than I could ever need or possibly believe in. I was working 6.5 days a week for probably about 6-7 years initially. And I worked through Christmas and I worked through New Year's, and I worked really hard. And it paid for a beautiful house at the age of 22 in Parkhurst, the German cars, the toys, the bikes, and lots of parties to blow the excess cash that I was living. I felt rich. But I think that in order to be the top 1% people always aspire to, you have to give up on this work-life balance myth. I think in order for you to become the 1%, you really, really do need to give up on the balance part and really push down hard on the work part of your life. So in order to get the benefit of the future, you need to sacrifice the present for that future. And the price you pay is you don't get the present, but you're bringing all that future pain forward to have balance later. This is taking on responsibility. And I find that successful people take on more responsibility than most people sort of seek. And they shoulder and instinctively understand they need to take on more for the long-term benefits. So at 45, I now have, one property, one car in the family, a way less cash, but I do feel that I'm richer now than I was when I was 22. But to better understand work-life balance, you need to understand what wealth is. So there's a great sort of algebraic equation that helps you understand what work-life balance looks like. It's A plus B equals X times T. So A is work, B is balance, X is wealth by when, the time. So obviously, in order to figure out, well, how much work A or balance B do we need, we have to define, well, what is wealth for you? And wealth is generally something that's very personal. And we should obviously start with understanding what wealth is before we can work out what your work-life balance should look like. So let's define wealth. In my opinion, equity is wealth, where salary is comfort. You work hard now, you get balance later in life. Being rich and being wealthy are not the same thing. Wealth is how you determine your lifestyle, i.e., do you always fly first class or do you always fly sort of coach? And do you have, or are you managing to gain assets that will give you a passive or annuity-based income greater than your costs, i.e. your burn? So don't ask yourself, who am I wealthy compared to? Because it's not a comparison. There will always be someone wealthier or richer than you, someone living a better Instagram life than you, and someone who's probably genuinely happier than you. So I know people that I would consider very rich. I know people that are earning probably in excess of R500,000 a month in their salaries. They are divorced. They have 2 kids from the first wife, 1 kid from the second wife. They're supporting sort of 3 households and a family holiday home. They're supporting kids in private school. They're supporting their parents who aren't able to support themselves financially. And during the COVID period, what became very apparent to me is that they didn't have 6 weeks worth of cash in the bank. They had no financial support. So they live a very rich lifestyle from the outside, but these people are not really wealthy. On the flip side, my mother, who spends probably about 30,000 Rand a month living, and that includes everything, has about 40,000 Rands worth of passive income. That is money from rentals and investments that come in. So my mother, who spends 30,000 Rand, has 10,000 Rand extra to burn every single month. My mother is wealthy compared to those people who are earning R500,000 Rand a month. So wealth for me is determined as is passive income greater than your burn. And you don't measure your revenue, you measure your burn. So the question is, how wealthy do you want to be, i.e. X, and by when? And if you can work that out, you can work out how hard you have to work and what kind of balance you're going to sacrifice in order to achieve your X, your wealth, by when. So also bear in mind that most of you are not most likely going to be producing businesses like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, and also have to determine what kind of risk. Entrepreneur is Latin for risk taker. What kind of risk taker are you, and what stage of life are you in? If you're 20 and you've got nothing to lose and you're living on your parents' couch, you can take a large risk. When you're in your mid-30s and you've got kids and the white picket fence to support everybody, you are less risk averse. So you need to work at, well, what is that X in your life? Lesson 5, I spend more time speaking to clients who have partners, or the partners in my meetings, about themselves and their business and their conflict between each other than the actual strategic growth of their business, which is what they're actually employing me for. So I don't believe that, as a rule, partners are actually something you need in a business. I believe that ownership is everything, and people believe in the myth of partnerships. Especially at the very early stages of business, people tend to want partners as a sense of comfort. I believe that ownership is everything. And when you partner with certain people, you're giving up a certain amount of your freedom. And again, freedom is your option of choice, and partners take a piece of that choice away from you. So what people often tend to do is they want to hire quality people, can't afford them, so they offer them equity. And equity is the most expensive form of payment for people. Always rather employ people than partner with people in the short term. So you must always remember that 1 + 1 does not equal 2 when it comes to partnerships. People often think that because there are 2 of us, we'll grow the business twice as fast, if not even 1 + 1 = 3. 1 + 1 for me equals comfort, and never, ever, ever equals 2. 1 + 1 often equals 1.5. So don't get caught by the fact that you need a partner in the business if you don't. However, I'm going to contradict myself here, is that on those rare occasions, the right partner can give you great exponential growth in your business. It also allows you to go on holiday, leaving someone in the business that you trust to keep steering the ship forward. So if you're going to take on partners, make sure you take them on for the right reasons. Always look for the opposing skills to yourself, a different skill set. Possibly you want to take on partners because they got money to grow the business, or you're looking for a succession or exit plan. Maybe the right partner to become your exit partner. Maybe they bring a valuable network, but you always need to make sure that these people have the same value set to you. They have the same ambitions. They want to build the same kind of business to you. And at the same stage of life. What you tend to find is that young guys and old guys getting together have very different ambitions, because the one's already had his kids and is more risk averse, where if you're young and you have no toddlers, you're prepared to risk a hell of a lot more. So try to find people that are at a similar stage of life with different skills. And if you're already in a partnership, then make sure that you've got someone that's supporting you with complementary values, different skill sets. So if you're a creative business, go find someone with an MBA or an accountant or a salesperson, etc. And bear in mind that if you're giving shares away and diluting it, you need to earn twice as much in order to have as much personal value. So bear in mind that sometimes it's better to own 100% of a smaller business than 50% of a bigger business that isn't making money. The sixth lesson is, there's a great comedian called Stephen Wright. If you haven't heard of him, go Google him. He's quite amusing. He said something along the lines of 50% of your friends are below average. And I believe that 99% of you are not in the top 1%. So as you grow older, you sort of realize your place in the world, and you know that you're not Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos from Amazon. And the sooner you realize some of your limitations, and I don't want to hamper your growth, but understand your limitations, the sooner you can define your own success and then go out and achieve them. So don't believe you're building the next Instagram or the next sort of Facebook. I do believe that pure entrepreneurs are kind of like cats. They've got 9 lives, 9 business lives. I've personally lost a couple of those lives, but you get up and do it again. One of the things that I think speaks to the fact that you're not in your top 1% is something called Galton's talent wall. And it was framed in the late 1800s by Sir Francis Galton. And he talks about the different levels of personal growth. It often is referred to as something called the OK plateau, which psychologists in the 1960s defined as the sort of stages we go through when acquiring new skill sets. So the first set is the cognitive phase, where we start intellectualizing the tasks in front of us. We discover new sort of strategies to perform them better, and we make lots of mistakes, but we're consciously focusing on getting better and doing things better. If you think about driving a car, it's that first stage of when you learn how to drive a car. The next phase is the associative stage. It's where you're making fewer and fewer errors and you're just getting better all the time. And the final stage is the autonomous stage. When you think about driving a car, it's where you sort of on autopilot and you can do other things in the background and you don't have to concentrate that hard on doing the tasks. And the problem with autonomous stage is that we then get to a phase where it becomes the OK plateau, where we get into a sense of comfort. We're performing at a good enough phase. We don't really care about much improvement. We don't really push much harder to achieve any sort of further goals. And this is often a place where it's just good enough. And a lot of people do reach this OK plateau and don't recognize it. And this is your limit. And this is where you need to recognize your limit and then try and push through to grow there. But also be realistic with how big a business you want, and make sure that you're building the business that you want, not the business people expect you to build, and put pressure on yourself unnecessarily. One of the next lessons I strongly believe in is build brand me. So brand you. At every single stage of your business, whether you're an employee or a business owner, you should be building your own brand. Personal branding is crucially important in order to tell your story and create a meaningful content to employ good people, to find the right kind of clients, and ultimately serve you for a very long career, because you probably won't be in one business most of your life. There's a great rule of the internet called the 1-9-90 rule. It's 1% create content, 9% disseminate or share content, and 90% consume that content. If you're a business owner or an employee that wants to grow themselves personally, you need to make sure that you are the 1%, that you are putting out content all the time and building your brand. Outside of building your brand, I also believe it's really important that around your brand, you start building community. And bear in mind that brand is not what you tell your customers or tell your network. Brand is what your customers or network tell their friends. So it's also really important that you build assets around you that people can refer to you as being an expert in. Credibility plus a strong network plus the skills to deliver is success. Very simple. So it's all very well that you have a strong network and you have a network that believes you're credible. If you can combine those three in any sort of sphere you move into, you will be successful. South Africa is a referral economy. The majority of my clients that I speak to, and you ask them how did they get work, it's predominantly through referral. So through current clients or past clients passing their name around. So it's crucially important that you build a personal network that becomes exponentially more valuable with every connection that you add, and then nurture the network. You need to nurture your network for those people to become ambassadors and leaders in your own cause. Seth Godin's book, The Idea Virus, talks about the fact that you and your brand is the virus, and you're looking for sneezers, people that will sneeze and pass you around into their network. There's a great phrase, it's called Metcalfe's Law. Metcalfe's Law states that the effect of a telecommunications network is proportional to the square of the number of connected users to the system, which sounds very complicated, but basically what it means is that, one cell phone, very cool, a lot of cell phones, much cooler, and every time you add a cell phone, the more powerful that network becomes. So in order to make money and be successful as an employee or a business owner in South Africa, you need a network, okay? And again, the SA is very, very strong from a referral economy, and the power and the size of your network is directly proportional to the future of your future success. So always be questioning, what does your network look like? Who are the people around you today that will become important to you in the future? You never underestimate that the people that you studied with, the people that were side by side when you were juniors, over the next 20, 30, 40 years, those people will become the leaders of businesses, leaders of large businesses. And potentially they will then need your services in some degree, somewhere. So your network is people that you know today. I'm your network. And the longer you work, the greater your network should become. But you need to be strategic with how you build your network out. And remember that, again, strong network plus credibility plus the skills gives you success. The next lesson is the paradox of perfection. People often find that they're looking for perfectionists in their business. And I don't believe that is the right solution. If you think you're a perfectionist, you've got a real problem with growth. You're actually looking for people that are sort of 80% competent 100% of the time versus people that are 100% competent only half the time. So you're looking for consistency versus the miracle of perfection. So when interviewing people, one of the questions people always ask is, what are your weaknesses? And the stock standard answer is, well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And for me, that's an alarm bell, because perfectionists fail on a regular basis. And as soon as a perfectionist fails or doesn't believe they've achieved their standard, they sort of give up. And they believe that if they don't try, then they can't fail and they don't get hurt the second time. So you're not looking for perfectionists in your business. You're looking for guys that are consistent and can show a level of sort of grit. There's a great a book called The Randomnistas by a guy called Andrew Lee. And he has a case study where they take 100 businesses and they break them into two groups of 50. And the first 50 go through sort of a shark tank where they have a bunch of professionals, experts, And those 50 people pitch their business in order to win a $50,000 sort of startup allowance. And they go through the specialists, and those 50 get nominated out of a very, very large group. And the other 50 have to do a series of very, very difficult online questionnaires as some kind of filter. So there was no interview, and it was just very much around them taking the time and the effort to go through a lot of long-winded questions. And over the 3-year period, what the results were was that the guys that went through the much more difficult onboarding process and the application online tended to have grown much better, more successful businesses than the ones that the experts believed would have done. And this just talks to the fact that people had grit, that they didn't give up through the process of actually trying to get themselves the $50,000 to win. And the last piece around this lesson is this word about hustling. People talk about grit and hustle. And I don't believe that people should be hustling. The word hustling is actually quite a negative thing. And we always put ourselves as the hustler. But ultimately, you always remember that someone who is being hustled doesn't want to be hustled. And always ask yourself, do you want to be hustled? So no one wants to be hustled. It's a very negative word and very short-term in its thinking. Don't hustle, rather be persistent in everything that you do. I want to talk a little bit about strategy and sort of the murky waters of strategy. I believe strategy is the most overused and misunderstood word in the entrepreneurial dictionary. There is no perfect strategy for every single business. There are multiple different strategy methodologies based on the complexity, maturity of each business, as well as the objectives of the business owner and its ownership and what the sort of owner's mandate looks like. So, of course, strategy was born out of war, with the obvious reason of it needing to win against the opposition. And strategy doesn't need to exist unless there is competition in the market. So without competition, there is no need for strategy to exist. So the first principle you need to understand around strategy is that no strategy survives impact with the enemy. And a great story that reflects this is it was called The Bite of 97, where Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson fought for the heavyweight championship of the world, WBH heavyweight championship. And these two professionals had spent months training and analyzing each other's game of how they sort of played in the ring. And they each had a strategy of how they were going to win this particular fight. And somewhere around the third round, about 40 seconds into the third round, Mike Tyson took a massive bite out of Holyfield's ear, and a big piece fell to the ground. And at that point, both of their strategies had sort of evaporated. So again, strategy doesn't survive impact with the enemy. It's a plan that you start with, and it needs to be aligned and measured and controlled as you roll out strategy. And secondly, the answer to every strategic question is it depends. Every question and every market analysis can be spun differently, and the strategy can be then corrected or realigned based on what you hope to achieve and your ambitions. So very simply, strategy is always broken down into 6 core stages. It's the current stage, where are you today, and sort of the risk analysis and understanding the marketplace, as well as what you have and don't have and your existing resources. Then you go into the goal setting and the objective setting phase, which is phase 2. Then the high level strategies that you're going to deploy to achieve these goals and strategies. Then lower level, the tactics to activate for each of these strategies. Then there's the actual granular level of actions, who's doing what, how, and by when. And the last piece, which most people tend to forget about, is the control and measurement. And this is how we make sure that the strategy is working, whether it's failing, or how we need to align it. So it's really important that you don't get stuck in the tactics and actions. That's not strategy. Strategy is understanding all 6 levels of that. There's a great book called Start With Why by a guy called Simon Sinek, which is an amazing piece of thinking. But I do believe for smaller owner-run businesses, it's a little bit flawed, because a lot of that why talks to the staff and the marketplace. It doesn't talk to why am I the business owner in business. And very often the reason is just I want to make a living and pay for my kids' education. So there's very much an inner circle of the personal why. And why does a man or woman start a business? And that needs to be understood before you get into the greater why we exist as a business. The way I would try and do that is understand a very simple winning condition of what does winning look like for you, the business owner, over sort of 3 terms: long-term, mid-term, short-term. And in most businesses, long-term is probably 3 to 5 years, because more than that, you can't really predict what your business will look like in 3 to 5 years, unless you are a very heavy a mature and sophisticated business. So breaking into like a long-term fluffy dream without the measurement. So it's more around like, what kind of salary do I want? What kind of role do I do in the business? How many staff? What kind of clients? How many offices? Where's our position in the market? What kind of product set? So fluffy stuff in 3 years is a good starting point. Break it down to 12 months, which is a lot more tangible, and some measurable meat onto the bones, and then get into the 90-day. What am I doing? That's the to-do list, the tasks and responsibilities with a high amount of measurement in the next 90 days. And based on my point of view, the 55-year-old man or woman who wants to start a business is often the best business to back, and they build the best businesses quite quickly. And the reason is the first thing is that they've got 25 to 30 years, if not more, of a network, which I talked about how important network is, especially in this country. They have credibility in that network. They've definitely acquired a lot of skills over that period, but more importantly, they know what they don't want in their business. And I think it was Duke Ellington that said, "Don't give me more time, give me a deadline." When you're 55, there's a real deadline. There's no more, well, we'll do another 5-year plan when you're 25 to 30 or 35 to 40. When you're 55 or 60, you know that there's the fragility of life. You understand that, you realize you don't have 25, 30 more years in the workforce. There's a real deadline for you to go out and make substantial amounts of money so you can possibly retire. When you're 20, you're going to live forever. When you're 50, you know you have to build a meaningful business very quickly in order to give yourself financial freedom and possibly leave that legacy. So knowing what you can't do and what you don't want is sort of half the trick of a strategy. Every business is kind of like a river. It needs river banks in order to flow fast and efficiently. And the sort of the tighter the river banks are, the faster the river will flow. So again, know what your limits are, know what you don't want, and know what you won't tolerate. A very simple strategy for most businesses to go forward is something called the 5 1s. Breaking down as simple as it's pick one perfect client, one client avatar. So what does the right client look like for the next 3, 6, 12 months in your life? And be specific as possible. Is it pharmaceutical business? Is it B2B? Is it local? What kind of client are you looking for? Pick one and be specific with the one client. What is your one signature solution or your one primary product? So what is the thing that you can offer that one client avatar that solves a problem in their life? And make sure that thing is unique and is differentiated from the rest of the market. So what does your one signature solution look like? The next one is pick one marketing channel. And social media is not a marketing channel. LinkedIn is a marketing channel. So pick one marketing channel, so whether it's PR, whether it's social media, whether it's TV, radio, print, whatever it is. Pick one, become an expert in one, and put all your effort into one marketing channel. Then pick one conversion method. And conversion method is a way of taking people from that marketing channel, from them being aware, getting them to spend money with you. And spend money with you on your signature solution or primary product. So pick one conversion method. A conversion method could be something like an e-commerce store. It could be something like a freemium model. It could be something like a webinar to a sales meeting. Those are sort of conversion methods. And the last thing is do it for 1 year. So don't chase shiny pennies. Don't get off track of where you want to go. One client, one solution, one marketing channel, one conversion method, 1 year. Do that, and I can guarantee you will grow your business. Lesson 11, don't only follow your passion. There's an amazing tension between some of the creative businesses and those artists that run businesses and the business elements of the business, where the artist cannot let go of the quality of the work and cannot understand that good enough is sometimes good enough. There's a great book, if you're in the creative industries, called The War of Art, not The Art of War, which is Sun Tzu. It's The War of Art by a guy called Steven Pressfield. He talks about this positive tension between art and business, and being able to let go of sort of the quality of work and the creative that's good enough that you will have a client that will pay for it. But what I want you to be aware of is that if the art or if the thing that you're doing is your passion will then deteriorate in value as you put a client at the end of that project. As soon as a client's telling you how to dictate or dictates what you want to do at your passion project, you will start begrudging the kind of work you do. So you need to be passionate about the business, but I also want you to be, just good at what you do and learn to love the other peripheral elements of running a business. So you need to learn things like how to deal with people, learn to love the numbers in the business, learn to love sales, and learn to drive your own motivation. So Be good at what you do and like what you do, and then honor your values too. If you want to be charitable or a charity in your business, go ahead and do charity, but fund it from a profitable business. Don't turn your business into a charity. Okay. Also, there's a big red flag here. There's tons of people who stand up online or on YouTube and talk about, follow your passion. If you follow your passion, the money will come. But if you actually look at who those people are, they've already made their money. And usually they've made their money in a very unsexy business like iron ore smelting or cold chain distribution. So they can now follow their passion because they have the money. They didn't make their money following their passion. A really good example, the reason I have a motorbike on the slide, is that I started a small business project called Business Bikes and Breakfast. It was a group coaching and accountability program for entrepreneurs who own motorbikes. I took the two things that I loved, coaching people and motorcycling, and put them together. And what I quickly realized is that my passion for motorcycling was killed as soon as the clients started dictating how and when, and could we ride here and could we do that. And quite quickly I realized that I shouldn't be following my passion all the time. The next lesson is around CQ. Now, CQ is your change quotient. We all have been exposed to IQ, intelligent quotients, and EQ, emotional quotients, especially EQ in the last couple of years with the sort of millennial movement and the fact that businesses need to be EQ smart. But I believe that your change quotient, which is your ability to adapt to environment today, is actually more important than your IQ and EQ combined, especially considering what the last year of our lives have looked like. So when I talk about change, I'm not talking about change what you do or how you do it. I'm not asking you to change the person you are. I want you to think about the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly, or the tadpole that becomes the frog, right? It's the same DNA, it's the same animal, it's just better, it's more advanced, it's changed, it's more evolved. So I don't want you to change for change's sake, but I think that you need to be aware of the sort of the three C's of change. So those are a choice, circumstance, and crisis. And as a business owner, I want you to make sure that you're changing because of choice, not because of the circumstance or because you are under crisis. If you can take control of your choice and make those changes, at least you have control in your business to some degree. And when you are making those choices, you obviously can decide on the obvious choice, the socially acceptable choice, the status quo or the known story, or you can become sort of counterintuitive, socially frowned upon, do the unknown story and be a little bit more disruptive. People with high IQ also tend to believe they have to be the first to market. So always, got to get there first. But there's a great study by researchers, a guy called Peter Golder, who talks about the pioneers and the settlers. So the pioneers were the first movers. These were the companies that were first to develop and sell a product, where the settlers were slower to launch, waited for the pioneers to make the mistake before entering the market. And when Peter Golder then analyzed hundreds and thousands of brands in multiple different product categories, they found staggering differences in the success and failure rates of the pioneers versus the settlers. So 47% of the pioneers compared to only 8% of settlers failed. So pioneers were about 6 times more likely to fail than settlers. Even when the pioneers did survive, they only captured around 10% of the market compared to about 28% of the settlers. So being the smartest person in the room and the first to market is not always the right thing to do. Again, back to strategy. If you are in business, there's a high probability you are going to be hiring people and having a people-based business to some degree, whether you're high in production or whether you're selling services or physical product, you need people. So knowing when to hire, how to onboard, and how to retain good quality people is the most important skill you'll probably need in your business. So learn how to interview. An interview isn't you sitting in your room, having a cup of coffee and selling the candidate the dream. Interviewing is a test. You should be producing a physical test result that gives you a percentage to make sure that you're hiring the top quality candidates, not just the best of a bad bunch. It was Steve Jobs that said, A team players hire A team players, while B team players hire C team players. So always make sure that you're hiring the best you can afford at every single stage of your business. And always hire for skills, experience, talent, and culture. And I would almost suggest sort of 25% weighting across all of those: skills, experience, talent, and culture. Also bear in mind that if you're going into the workspace today as an employee, that employers look at what you've done in your personal capacity outside of your own skills and experience. So the question is, are you building stuff? Are you building communities? Are you showing that you have a great network? And are you showing potential bosses your tenacity for growth? Pricing, one of the most common questions I get asked is, what is the right price for my sales, for my service, or for my product? And understand that there is no such thing as being too expensive. There's always someone that will pay more for what you offer. A good example of this is that for my coaching, I'll start my coaching at 7,500 Rand a month. And for a lot of people go, that sounds like a lot of money. But the guys on the top of my category, my industry globally, guys like Tony Robbins, proudly talk about the fact that I only have 8 clients. And the 8 clients each give them $1 million a year for retainer, just for access, no delivery. So someone will always pay more. You've got to decide whether you want to be the Louis Vuitton of your business or the Chappie's sort of chewing gum of your business, and build your business for, low volume, high quality, or high volume and not necessarily low quality, but, I understand that you've got to sell thousands of Chappies to make a little bit of money, where Louis Vuitton sell 1 bag a day and they're paid for their rent. So the lesson is, pick the top or the bottom and stay at the middle. If you look at the retail space today, Woolworths own the top end, ShopRite own the bottom end, and Pick and Pay are lost somewhere in the middle. They don't know what they are. So decide and build your business according to the Louis Vuitton or Chappie's model. Also bear in mind that if you're selling service, there is the famous pricing triangle, which talks to price, quality, and time. And you can always allow your clients to pick 2 of those 3, price, quality, and time. And you get to pick the 3rd. And it's a very simple way to make sure that if a client is demanding all 3 from you, there's no way you're probably making money. So understanding pricing is a crucial lesson in your business. Second last lesson for me is getting shit done and have a great give a shit kind of mentality. So the biggest single contributor to a successful business is your attitude towards everything and everyone, and your ability to get shit done. As a business owner, you are responsible for multiple tasks and responsibilities, and your GST applies to every single aspect of your business and entails questions that you're unsure of and learnings from the processes of your mistakes. Getting shit done speaks to you believing in urgency and excellence and delivery. GST is often referred to that hustle, but it's more than that. It's the grit, it's your mental toughness, it's your emotional capacity, and your passion to be recognized for greatness, and always delivering what you said you would on time, on budget, without any sort of fuss. Constantly improving and putting in the extra effort, and that's with your suppliers, your staff, and your clients alike, will pay off in more than just dividends. You're going to attract and retain better quality clients and staff at every single touch point in your business. So set your goals, push your boundaries, achieve success, and always over deliver, and then copy paste. Having a high GSD factor will allow you to work on the big picture and the vision in small, bite-sized, achievable chunks, and looking at the long road ahead and never feeling that it's too far to go. Building your GSD factor it takes work. Starting a business is easy. Growing a business is very painful. Growing a great business is extremely tough and takes a lot of resilience. So getting shit done for me is godly. Your clients, suppliers, and consumers will never remember the work you delivered over the years and months to come, but they will remember the way in which you delivered the work, your level of professionalism, the way you present yourself, how you communicated with them at all the touch points in your business. So GSD is what makes your business a success. GSD is what will make you a success. So always make sure that you're getting the shit done. And the last lesson is shake your Etcher sketch. So growing up, I had a different kind of screen from the screens we used to today. It was called an Etcher sketch. It was a toy that was invented by a Frenchman in the early 1950s. It had 2 little styluses or knobs. And when you moved them around, scratched aluminium powder off the back of the screen, leaving a solid line so you could draw stuff. And for me, this was absolutely magic, right? You only need to then take the Etcher sketch, flip it upside down, and redistribute the powder over the screen, and you could start again. So COVID this year has presented an opportunity for us to envision our lives turned upside down and powder redistributed. So we can all start again and sort of draw outside the lines again. So you will never regret trying something new. You will only ever regret not trying something at all. So COVID has opened up opportunities for me and a lot of my clients for a much better life. It's definitely an opportunity for a rebirth, a rejuvenation, a reincarnation, a reinvention. And I want you all to sort of embrace the change. It's your chance now, and I think that the opportunities are there for you to grab with both hands. So that's me in a rush. Got that through in sort of 45 minutes. I would love to take your questions and any sort of comments that you have. Please feel free to just unmark yourself and let's have this conversation.
So we do have a comment here from Ariella. She says, I know that you said that don't treat your business as a charity, but there are cases when a business is a charity. Are also any questions that you like using when interviewing?
Say that again. What was the last one?
Do you have any questions that you like using when interviewing?
So, yeah, I have quite a